Huron. With respect to tonight's agenda, Council-elect will be taking their declaration of office. We will then be hearing words from Pastor Dale Hussey, then be presenting the gavel and the chain of office to the Reeve. The Reeve will then be invited to make his inaugural address. There'll then be an opportunity for councillors to make any remarks that they wish to make. We'll then have the election of the Deputy Reeve, and then we will move into regular council meeting, at which point the Reeve will assume the role of chair. So without further delay, we will start with the declaration of office. And I'd like to invite Reeve-elect Bernie Bailey forward to the podium. Do you wish to swear in the Bible or affirm? Do you repeat after me? I, Bernie Bailey, having been appointed to the office of Reeve in the municipality of the Township of North Huron, do solemnly promise and declare that
I, Bernie Bailey, have been appointed to the office of Reeve in the municipality of Township of North Huron, do solemnly promise and declare that
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I will not receive and will not receive. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
for
the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
For the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
And I make the solemn promise and declaration consciously,
And I make this solemn promise and declaration constantly,
believing it to be true and knowing that it is the same force and effect as if made under oath.
believing it is true and knowing that it is the same force and effect as if made under oath.
If I could call forward Paul Hepburn. I, Paul Heffer, having been appointed to the office of Wingham Ward Councillor in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
I, Paul Heffer, having been appointed to the office of Wingham Ward Councillor in the municipality of Township of North Huron,
do solemnly promise and declare that
do solemnly promise and declare that
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
or promise thereof
for the exercise of this office
for the exercise of this office
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
direct or indirect,
direct or indirect,
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
And I make the solemn promise and declaration,
And I make the solemn promise and declaration,
consciously believing it to be true,
consciously believing it to be true,
and knowing that it is of the same force and effect
and knowing that it is of the same force and effect
as if made under oath.
as if made under oath.
Thanks. So, sign the declaration, and then we see a copy. If I could go forward, Kevin Faulkner. Here's just another Bible or fern. I, Kevin Faulkner, having been appointed to the office of Blythe Ward Councillor
I, Kevin Faulkner, being appointed to the office of Blythe Ward Councillor
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
do solemnly promise and declare that
do solemnly promise and declare that
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I have not received or will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
or promise thereof
for the exercise of this office
for the exercise of this office
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
in a biased, corrupt, or any other improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
direct or indirect,
direct or indirect,
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II,
And I make this solemn promise and declaration,
and I make this solemn promise and declaration,
consciously believing it to be true,
consciously believing it to be true,
and knowing that it is the same force and effect as if made under oath.
and knowing that it is in the same force and effect as in the manner under oath.
If I could call forward Rick McBurney. I, Rick McBurney, having been appointed to the office of Blythe Ward Councillor
I, Rick McCurdy, have been appointed to the office of Blythe Ward Councillor
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
do solemnly promise and declare that
do solemnly promise and declare that
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
or promise thereof
for the exercise of this office
for the exercise of this office
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
direct or indirect,
direct or indirect,
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II,
And I make the solemn promise
and I make this solemn promise
and declaration,
and declaration,
consciously believing it to be true,
consciously believing it to be true,
and knowing that it is the same force and effect
and knowing it's of the same force and effect
as if made under oath.
as if made under oath.
I'd like to call forward Chris Palmer. I, should we sign the Bible or for? I, Chris Palmer,
I, Chris Palmer,
having been appointed to the office
have been appointed to the office
East Ward Wallenosh Councillor
East Wallenosh Ward Councillor
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
do solemnly promise and declare
do solemnly promise and declare
that I will truthfully, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
that I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I have not received or will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
or promise thereof
for the exercise of this office
for the exercise of this office
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
in a biased, corrupt, or any other improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
direct or indirect,
direct or indirect,
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
And I make the solemn promise
And I make this solemn promise
and declaration,
and declaration,
consciously believing it to be true,
consciously believing it to be true,
and knowing that it is of the same force and effect
and knowing that it is in the same force and effect
as if made under oath.
as if made under oath.
Okay, I'd like to call forward Trevor Sight. Yeah. I, Trevor Sight,
I, Trevor Sight,
having been appointed to the office
having been appointed to the office
of Wingham Ward Councillor
of Wingham Ward Councillor
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
do solemnly promise and declare that
do solemnly promise and declare that
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially
exercise this office
exercise this office
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
or promise thereof
for the exercise of this office
for the exercise of this office
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
in a biased, corrupt, or any improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
direct or indirect,
direct or indirect,
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II,
And I make this solemn promise
and I make this solemn promise
and declaration,
and declaration,
consciously believing it to be true,
consciously believing it to be true,
and knowing that it is with the same force and effect
and knowing that it is in the same force and effect
as if made under oath.
as if made under oath.
Okay, I'd like to call Anita Van Peterson forward. I, Anita Van Peterson,
I, Anita Van Ederson,
having been appointed to the office
having been appointed to the office
of East Wallenosh Ward Councillor
of East Wallenosh Ward Councillor
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
in the municipality of the Township of North Huron,
do solemnly promise and declare that
do solemnly promise and declare that
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
I will truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
to the best of my knowledge and ability.
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward
or promise thereof
or promise thereof
for the exercise of this office
for the exercise of this office
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner.
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
I will disclose any pecuniary interest,
direct or indirect,
direct or indirect,
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II,
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
and I make the solemn promise
And I make the solemn promise
and declaration,
and declaration,
consciously believing it to be true,
consciously believing it to be true,
and knowing that it is of the same force and effect
and knowing that it is of the same force and effect
as if made under oath.
as if made under oath.
I'd like to congratulate the 2018 to 2022 term of council. I'd like to now call forward Pastor Dale Hussey to provide a few words.
And I'm just so blessed to be here tonight and experience the peace and the willingness of the Reeve and all of you counselors and people that support you to maintain that safety and as the scripture says, of the increase of his government and peace shall be no end. And I think of the responsibilities each of you have, but first of all, your willingness to give your time and the wisdom over many years you've received and learned, and because it says it's more blessed to give than to receive. And my wife and I've had the privilege to live in this area for nearly 45 years and raise our 9 children. And we've enjoyed the prosperity and the blessing. And as the scripture says, the blessing of the Lord maketh rich and addeth with it no sorrow. Some parts of the earth tonight are very troubled, very disturbed because of lack of government and lack of order. And the responsibility you've taken on to make decisions in the future that's going to affect so many families and so many lives. I just want to, pray a blessing on you. I want to pray I believe as a servant of the Lord, and how Jesus said, the words that I speak, their spirit and their life. He said, it's so important that we declare and decree the purpose that we're here for. And it's not just to what's in it for me, but how can I serve the interests of my neighbor, and how can I love my neighbor as myself? And I sense that love here tonight. I sense that concern and that desire to be a gift to your community, to your township, to wherever you were voted in. I see a man here that I remember. The puck stops here. So I played hockey with him, and to see him in a place of responsibility, and I know that the decisions that are going to be made I'm just believing there will be such a unity and a togetherness as you carry out the business that's needed for this region. And so I just wanted to read something, a short scripture because God's a blesser. God's not a taker, he's a giver. And God has given you gifts to share and to give freely because he gave them to you. And I guess I do cry sometimes. I weep. I get emotional when I see love in operation, when I see it being manifested, when I see it not just talk, but that there's actually sacrifice, and there's times that many things you will do no one will notice and they'll never see, but you're not living, what's in it for me. You're doing it because of a calling, really, of a responsibility to bring protection and safety. I know you're going to be making decisions on how money is to be spent and how the material things, but To me, the important thing is the safety of our communities and of our families. And I feel we're in wonderful hands and for the future. And I feel there's going to be such a greater blessing and prosperity come in the weeks and months to come that this area's never seen because of your willingness. There's a scripture that says, if we be willing and obedient, we'll eat the good of the land. So thank you for being willing. Thank you for giving your time. Thank you for saying, I'm available. And because there's such a need for good leadership and responsible leadership. And I just, in my ministry, I travel a lot and I pastored for 43 years. I just gave up my pastorate, but I'm still working. I started my work career, instead of having Freedom 55, I went to work in a real job, I guess they call it, and helping to build that arena that's sitting down there. Decisions had to be made for that to be a reality. And it's brought great blessing and great enjoyment to so many people. And that's what your decisions are going to do. It's going to bring peace on earth and goodwill among all men. I decree that. It's going to bring unity in our community. And if there's been schisms and divisions and things that shouldn't be happening, it's going to cease. Because one day, we're coming to that time of season when the angels declare peace on earth and goodwill among all men. And that's what my wife and I have lived with our family to be repairers of the breaches, to heal the hurts. And I'm sure you're inheriting some problems and situations. And I believe one is 5 are all new counselors, and one has been reelected. And so it's quite a new job for you, a new chapter in your life. But you're going to do it well. You're going to do it right. And we're going to feel the effects of it out there in the communities. And thank you again for being available. And this is what just something in Numbers came to me. I'm just going to leave with you because, again, with our lives, we bless or we curse. But I just feel a lot of blessing here. And, how we treat people, how we forgive people, how we honor people and prefer people. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his sons, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, The Lord bless thee and keep thee. The Lord make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. Heavenly Father, I thank you for letting me be here to experience the peace that's in these men and women's hearts. And Lord, I thank you that you're going to give them the wisdom to make the right decisions in the future for our communities and for our lives. And Father, we thank you that for their availability, that you've enabled them and given them a joy to serve and to give. And Lord, when we give, you give back to us, heaped up, pressed down, and running over. And there's going to be joy even in their togetherness. And there's going to be peace that's going to go out in their decisions. That's going to heal our community, and that's going to cause it to prosper. And people are going to take notice of what's happening in Huron County, in this area, and North Huron, and the different townships, Lord. We just thank you for favor in our land and blessing. Hallelujah. I just say thank you, Jesus, for your mercy and love that's brought this day about. Amen.
Thank you very much for those words. Appreciate that. If I could now call forward Reed Bailey. I have the privilege of presenting to you the chain of office for the Township of North Huron. You're welcome. And
with that, I'd like to call upon Reed Bailey for comments, and I'll go to the rest.
Welcome to the inauguration of the North Huron Council for 2018. I would like to start with a heartfelt thank you to the municipality of North Huron. It is truly humbling to have seen so many votes in favor of the platform I put forward, in your faith that I can guide this council into a positive, creative, new direction. Thank you to the municipality of North Huron staff for organizing this meeting and all the work on getting us here. Well done. To all the candidates that put their names forward, thank you for your involvement. To the successful candidates that are here tonight, congratulations. Welcome to our next 4 years together. We will make a difference. I would like to say a personal thank you to all people that encouraged, supported, and helped me on the campaign trail. You are why I am here. Thank you for your unwavering support. A very special thanks to my wife, Angela, my family who were there all the way, including my 83-year young mother, former councillor and deputy councillor of Wingham, who went door to door with all of us. On the campaign trail, I would often be told that if I was half as good as my mother, North Huron would be in good hands. Councillors, the bar has been set very high. I am glad to see all councillors took the personal time to meet with me individually and have discussions. It is quite refreshing that all of us are willing to understand the job ahead of each other's points of views, moving forward in a team effort to take care of business. It should be noted the new councillors have about 20 hours of unpaid time in already. It's a strong showing of their dedication to North Huron. I met the CEO and the department heads and know there is a strong desire to work as a team. This is an important part of a good foundation. I would like our neighboring municipalities, Morris, Turnberry, South Huron, and ACW, to know that the council is open for business and willing to work with them in joint beneficial interests. Let me assure all developers, North Huron will never stand in the way of development in any of its forms. As a matter of fact, I publicly stated, and I believe North Huron and Morris Turnberry should amalgamate. I've instructed our staff to put together a complete review of our relationship so we can look at it and decisions for the future be made in reality, not myth. Our agreements must be beneficial for both partners, but after reading the bylaws, I realize I may need a motion in council to bring that on. If we do not amalgamate, there are several other ways to move forward. North Huron will grow under this new council with opportunities created, not missed. This team will make decisions, sometimes hard decisions, based on fact, not fiction, and in a proper working relationship benefiting all the stakeholders involved. This council is committed to listening to everyone and voicing our individual ideas and concerns while hearing, pondering, thinking about the collective voice around us. Our council will not spend years talking about items to death, blaming staff or blaming previous or other councillors or each other. We're going to move forward. Instead, we will focus on building for the future, starting now. Councillors, at the end of your 4 years, we want to look over our shoulders and see the difference we've made. We want it to be positive, different. We want it to be a positive difference, and we and only we can make that happen. It needs to be good because there's no do-overs. Last but not least, let's have fun getting there. I see my role as asking questions, getting the information for councillors, working with staff, understanding why, and making sure the collective ideas shine through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reed Bailey. I'd now like to invite members of council to make any comments or remarks, and perhaps if we could start to my right with Councillor Faulkner.
I'd just like to say welcome to the fellow councillors and our Reeve. In the short time that we've had to get to know each other, one thing has stuck out in my mind that has really enlightened my heart, the willingness to talk, willingness to try and find a way to collaborate together and speak as one voice. It is very, very heart lightening. to know that there's a dedicated bunch of people that are willing to talk and discuss and come to a great conclusion. Also like to say that a short time that I've known the staff here in North Huron, I'm amazed by their context of knowledge of our municipality. We have some great people working for us here. I just want to say, just welcome everybody and let's get going.
I'd like to just say thank you for the opportunity of serving our area of North Huron and look forward to working with all people around the table here. And again, working with our staff. Appreciate that very much. Thank you.
I'm gonna have to repeat that. I'm looking forward to working with this council and staff. I'd like to thank those that put me in this position. And I like what Bernie says, we gotta have fun doing this.
I want to give a heartfelt thanks to all those that that voted for me. I come to this group with total respect for the office of counselor. This will be my service to the community. I will work hard and perform to the best of my ability, be transparent and be respectful at all times. I will be representing the ratepayers of the East Wallinash Ward, of course, and my door will be open, my phone will be on, and the text will be ready. So contact me in any manner because I want to hear your concerns. I'm a firm believer in what government is all about, is its people. I look forward to working with my fellow councilors. Most of us are new, so we've got a sharp learning curve ahead of us. But we all believe in the same thing. And that's like our primary focus will be moving this municipality forward in a responsible way. I expect an excellent relationship with our staff. From what I can tell so far, they are professional, knowledgeable, and respectful of the taxpayers. I anticipate a challenging but rewarding year ahead. By working together, council and staff, we will succeed, our goals will be met, and our future will be brighter and stronger as we think of and plan for the next generation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to thank the ratepayers of the municipality of North Huron for which have put me in this position. Being reelected, it's an excellent honor. But I do sit here for really the municipality and its members. But really the reason I sit here is for three people that are here for tonight. They allow me to sit here. They allow me to take many, many hours of my family time away from them so I can help with making decisions that will make this a better place for my girls and my wife. So I do want to thank them because it does take a lot of time away from them, and I do respect, I wouldn't be here without them. So to the counselors and to the Reeve, I think with change comes opportunity. And we've been presented with an excellent opportunity to grow this municipality, to change it for the better. Right or wrong, the future or the past is the past. We have to look to the future as we've all been indicating. But at the end of the day, we are going to have some difficult choices. And those choices are not going to be easy for us sitting in this chair as being elected, but also for the ratepayers who have to deal with the choice that we make. So, at the end of the day, my solemn vow is that when I look at myself in the mirror, that I can respect the fact of the decision that I've made and the information that I've been given. So, thank you, Reeve, members of council, the public, my wife and my two lovely girls. Thank you very much, and let's move this municipality forward.
The Dear Reeve and fellow councillors, I would like to thank my family for giving me the opportunity to support and to serve at council. I'm also very thankful to the residents of East Wabash that they put their trust in me to represent their hopes and concerns in council. As a councillor, we will have to work together. Every council member has different qualities, and by sharing our interests and values, by bringing our strengths, we will gain a better understanding of the concerns and future plans for the community of North Huron. In connecting with the community, we can appreciate the great assets and wonderful people who live and work in North Huron. We can build and grow for the future expansions and hope for the best. I don't have all the answers, but hope North Huron residents will have a bit of patience to let us adjust to our new positions. I hope to serve the community of North Huron with passion, gratitude, and kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, members of council, and thanks again, Reeve Bailey. So our next item on our agenda is the election of a deputy reeve. The deputy reeve is selected at the inaugural meeting of council from the sitting members of council. The deputy reeve represents the corporation of the North Huron and acts in the absence of the head of council. With respect to the election of the deputy reeve, the process that we're going to follow is that I will serve as returning officer, and Barb Black, who's the deputy clerk, will be assisting me. Any member of council like to be considered a candidate for the position of deputy reeve needs to do so and declare in open council. Once all those who are interested or nominating has closed, each candidate will then be given a 3-minute opportunity to provide any comments that they wish to provide as part of the selection process. The election shall be done alphabetically by last name by a show of hands, again in open council. Each member of council has 1 vote. If there are more than 2 candidates seeking the position, the person receiving the lowest number of votes in the first vote would be left out of the second vote. So it's ranked ballot for those who are familiar with that term. When a candidate has received a majority of the votes, there will be no further voting. If there is a tie, the successful candidate shall be determined by myself by placing the names of the candidates on pieces of paper, put them in a box, and we draw from the box. Successful candidate will be declared by the clerk, and we'll be looking for a motion or resolution to council appointing that individual to the deputy clerk position. So as returning officer, I open the floor and call for any nominations for deputy reeve.
Nominate Trevor Sipe. Sorry.
Okay, I call for second. For anyone else that wishes to be.
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Anita.
Do you need a seconder for both those motions?
For nominations for deputy. So I call for a third and final time for anyone interested in the position of deputy reeve. Hearing none, I declare nomination closed. Councillor Sipe, do you accept nomination for deputy reeve?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Van Giddesen, do you accept position nomination for deputy reeve?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I'd like to invite Councillor Sipe in alphabetical order for 3 minutes. Any comments that he wishes to make for his fellow councillors for the position, and you'll be provided with the same opportunity.
So thank you, Reeve and fellow councillors. I accept this nomination for Deputy Reeve for the reasons of experience. I've had 4 years of experience within municipal council. I've dealt with the municipalities as a partner with our neighboring municipalities, but also within the county. I look as being a part of the transition, but also of the future of this municipality as well. And I truly believe that I can support the Reeve Bailey in his hopes and aspirations for this municipality, but also provide some openness and some the ability for some conversation to happen so that we can all communicate effectively and really, be a part of the team. And that's really the reason why I'm accepting of this nomination, mostly because of the experience that I think I can provide for the council as being reelected. So thank you very much.
Would you like Councillor Van Peterson?
Councillors or community leaders, declaring myself as a candidate for Deputy Reeve is not about me. Leadership is not about the leader. Leadership is bringing a team together and getting to find the best qualities in your team members and making them better. Making a team better starts with trust and understanding where you come from and where you go and where you want to go. A leader cares, is trustworthy, transparent, and supportive. Together with our great staff, Reeve and fellow councillors, I hope to bring growth and prosperity to North Huron so we can repair our roads and maintain our water systems. Residents of North Huron should feel confident in sharing their ideas and concerns. We don't have all the answers, but positive communication is a start. I have leadership experience as an assistant team leader at a pediatric ward in the University Hospital in the Netherlands. I have all kinds of volunteer experience here in Canada. Working at a farm made me aware of all the things I know a little bit about. I know a little bit about planning. I know a little bit about the drainage. I know a little bit about all the things that are going on in government. I hope this will help me and help everybody in council and Reeve to become your next Deputy Reeve. And I count on all your support and help if you like this. Thank you.
Thank you. So just as a reminder, each member of council has one vote. Member of council, the individual who receives the majority votes of council will be declared the Deputy Reeve for the 2018 to 2022 term of council. Is everybody ready, or do we want a little bit of time to? Okay. Okay, so in alphabetical order, we have Councillor Sype and Councillor Van Peterson. So I'll call the question. By show of hands, all those who wish to appoint Councillor Sype as Deputy Reeve for the Township of North Huron, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you. And those who wish to appoint Anita Van Peterson as Deputy Reeve, raise your hands. Okay, Councillor Sype received majority of the votes and as such is declared the Deputy Reeve for the Township of North Huron. Congratulations, Councillor Sype. And with that, the Deputy Reeve's chair is where Councillor Faulkner is sitting. So with all due respect, Councillor Sype will move over to Councillor Faulkner's. Councillor Faulkner, everybody moves down. So Councillor McBurney, you will move over to where Councillor Palmer is, and Councillor Palmer will move into Councillor Sype's chair.
Congratulations. Oh, that's awesome.
So now you have new chair. Thanks,
Yeah.
Great. So with that, I am looking for a mover and a seconder to formally appoint Councillor Sype as deputy reeve for the Township of North Huron. Do I have a mover? Councillor Faulkner, seconder, Councillor McBurney. All those in favor? Carried. At this time, I would like to call Reed Bailey forward to assume the chair and to bring the regular meeting of council to order.
Thank you very kindly. So at 7:45, we're going to call the regular meeting of council. We'll start with confirmatory bylaw. Oh, sorry, confirmation of agenda.
I'll move it.
Oh, sorry, I missed that. Moved by Trevor, seconded by Kevin. Disclosure of peculiar interests on anything in the meeting today? None noted. Consent.
Sorry. I do have a pecuniary interest on the bills and accounts. Check number 503312 is actually made out to my wife for supplies from the daycare. She's a municipal employee, so I will not be voting on the bills and accounts for that particular item. Okay?
So noted. I don't think we need a motion for that.
No, he's declared.
Just a quick question. Does he have to do that? Does he have to declare that?
We'll talk a little bit about it. They will fill a pecuniary interest form.
Consent agenda. The Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent number XX to XX. Okay. So we need a motion to accept the bills and accounts. Chris Palmer is first and seconder. Sorry. Anita. It was Anita. My apologies. So for the bills and accounts, that's the money that the town has spent in the last couple of weeks since the last council meeting. You would have got a list of it. Are there any questions on any of the list, concerns of where that money was spent or anything that you're not quite understanding? Do not be shy to ask. When I was on council, I think Donna finally said about the 14th time I asked on something, you ask that every week. None noted, so. Going to go into reports then. And the Chief Administrating Officer / clerk, so I guess one or the other. Oh, you're both here now? Yeah, my friend.
Thanks.
Anything to say?
So I'll open over the report if you'd like.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have before you, council, is a report from myself regarding the procedural bylaw for the municipality. So it serves two purposes. One is to advise you and inform you in terms of what the procedural bylaw for the township currently says. And secondly, if there's any changes that you want to make to the bylaw, now's the opportunity to make those changes. And in terms of making the changes, is advising staff or informing staff as to what changes you'd like to see. We will then undertake to prepare an amendment to the procedural bylaw, and we will bring that back to the next meeting of council, which, unless council changes it, will be December the 17th, first and third Monday of the month. So just in terms of, if I could, the procedural bylaw, it's under the Municipal Act. Every municipality is required to have one. It essentially sets out, details regarding your meetings. And on November 19th, it was recently amended. We had to adjust the process for the election of the deputy reeve as a result of identifying a non-compliance with the Municipal Act. So that's now been resolved. You'll see in the report, the procedural bylaw deals with meetings, what is a meeting, what constitutes a meeting. It talks about minutes, delegations, bylaws, and resolutions. It also speaks to the rules of debate when an item is brought forward for decision of council, opportunity for council to speak to that, have a discussion around it before there's a motion put on the table. As well, it speaks to committees, the conduct of the meetings, and essentially this is about the reeve and the chair, about quorum, voting and maintaining order in the council chambers during a meeting. It also makes a statement about council committee member conformity with bylaws and decisions of council. It talks about the role of council, that what council's role is versus the staff role. It speaks to the role of the head of council or the reeve. It outlines what takes place when the head of council is not available. It discusses if a decision has been made by council and council wishes to revisit that decision. The procedural bylaw does allow for the reconsideration of that decision. However, there's a process that we need to follow. It also speaks to points of order and procedural appeals, and as well as making and amending the meeting rules and the regulations. So with that, essentially, this is, as I've said, in a nutshell, in terms of what the procedure bylaw addresses. Hopefully, everyone's had an opportunity to have a look at the procedural bylaw. If there are any changes that council wishes to make to the bylaw, staff would appreciate that feedback. And we will, as I indicated, we will make the necessary amendments and bring them back for council's consideration. If there are no amendments to the bylaw, then the procedural bylaw as it is will be our procedural bylaw on a go-forward basis. Any discussion? I'll turn it over to you.
Any discussion on that? Concerns?
It will be part of it, but I have a separate report on that.
Yeah, good. Seeing none? Do we need a motion for that? Sorry, go ahead, Trevor.
Sorry, I would like to make a comment about the possibility. I know under the procedural bylaw today, it doesn't allow public comment. And I would like to see something maybe reconsidered by this council about how we get something in the procedural bylaw that would allow the public to have the opportunity to comment on a item within the agenda that would allow them 5 minutes or whatever the case may be. I know we already have the opportunity for a delegation, but sometimes a delegation is a little more cumbersome. So I'm wondering if that public part of the procedural bylaw might be allowed to be maybe discussed with council as to what their thoughts are.
Completely understanding that, and I know exactly where you're going, and I'm on base with you. We're going to discuss that in 12.1.2 in the next section. Because we're up here right now.
Yeah, but what Councillor Syfe has raised, we can address and discuss here.
Okay, let's address that now. And I'll speak to that, and then I want to go around the table with the council. I'm totally in agreement with what Trevor's asking. When I was at different councils doing different things, I noticed some of the councils would allow public to speak for 2 minutes, and 2 minutes only, on everything that's in the agenda, therefore giving the public a chance to view their opinion, not 2 minutes for each one, but 2 minutes overall, so they could say, on this item, we feel this way, because it is about the public. And each council, or each person not in the public could do that for 2 minutes. It is not a question and answer period. It is comments from the public. And I believe that's where you're going, Trevor?
Yeah, that's really the indication, is that, in the pre-existing procedural bylaw, we go through the whole, it used to be pre-existing, the change was we go through a whole bunch of motions and declarations, and then we'd allow public comment. Well, it's not really the point. The point is to get the public input before you make the declaration or the motion. So, it might be one of those things where, it allows the public comment period, which might come out and something may be said where, something then gets deferred, as opposed to a motion or direction being made at that time. So, I think it might be one of those things where it might be value added. But obviously, in saying that, you as Reeve would, the standard understanding of what that requirement needs to be would be kind of by this council on what the parameters of that would be. So, that's my thought, is to get the impact from the public before we make a decision, so that we can actually make a decision based on information that we've got from the public.
Thank you very much. Further comments from the council?
Reed Bailey, I feel strongly about that. I'm glad you brought it up. I've been in a situation in another council where you're sitting there and they're bantering about, talking, about the issues, and you're stymied. You have no voice. And even sometimes they're asking questions between the councilors, and you got the answer and you're sitting right there. If that can be incorporated in some way, I think that would be a beneficial thing. But most certainly, parameters, somehow we have to have rules, and if it's overdone, overstated, or whatever, some are trying to take advantage of it, that cannot happen. We want to have a good discussion, well, not discussion, but good views from the public, and let them give it forth. I think that'd be value for us. Many times we don't have all the answers, and sometimes the answers are sitting right there. And I really like that idea.
Further comments? So would someone like to put a motion forward? Suggesting, not suggesting, stating that North Huron Council allow the public 2 minutes to speak on the agenda of the evening.
At the start of?
At the beginning of the meeting. So we can have the public views of what's going on out there, because you will find this will become a closet after a year or so. And it's nice to hear from the public in here before we make motions on that. So I would ask someone to put a motion forward to allow the public 2 minutes to comment on all of the agenda.
I so move that, but there should be a parameter, there has to be so many minutes allowed, I think, because, I think we can get the message.
Yeah. If you feel 2 minutes are too long, speak.
With a maximum somewhere,
Yeah.
like 20 minutes?
No,
How
no,
many
no,
minutes
no.
are we talking?
No, we're
total?
talking 2 minutes maximum total, not 2 minutes per item.
I'm thinking of the 2 minutes per person.
Yes.
So we have to watch out or be cognizant of how many people will speak. So we should have a maximum, I think.
I'm just, and maybe I should let council talk about this. I'm not sure how much I should get involved in the talking, but you know something, I'm a talker. I believe if it's an item that people have have issue with and 40 people want to speak about it, I'm afraid we should sit, not afraid, I think they should be allowed. That may happen on occasion. I think for most of the time, people will understand that they can speak for a group of people and say the same thing. That's a very good point to make, and I do want to open that up to the floor because it could add an hour to the council meeting, or it could be 2 minutes. I'm all in favor of having the public have their say. 1 minute, 2 minute, you guys decide. I'm just not sure we can cut it off. I understand where you're going with that. If an issue were to come up and 500 people wanted to speak.
Mr. Reeve, just as long as the conversation that we have, or the public has input into the agenda, as long as there's a way of verifying their fact base on their comments, rather than, I guess what I'm getting at is if they make a comment and it sways our decision based on the agenda that night, and we haven't had a chance to verify maybe some of the core issues or some of the things that they're speaking to. As long as it didn't sway what we were doing that without being able to research it. Their comments.
Yeah, I think we have to use, there's twofold. This particular motion would be two minutes for individual. If an individual so choose to have more time, they have the opportunity to provide an application for a delegation. That would give them 10 minutes at talking about any particular topic that they so choose. Now that needs to be approved by the clerk and that type of stuff. However, it does limit us a little bit in order to how people are presenting. I think the one question that I would have is, if so choose, if we're giving 2 minutes, as long as the Reeve has the ability, in my eyes, is to ask, does anybody have anything new to present? Then you might be that maybe limit the number of people who are honored to talk. If it's specifically on something that they haven't heard yet, then I think I think they should have the right to have their say. But if we're just going to hear the regurgitation of the same thing over and over again, in my mind it's not value added. Then I think I give some openness to the Reeve to ask those questions of the individuals who are wanting to speak. Obviously, we can deter that. I don't want to extend council meetings by 2 hours because of it. We have other mechanisms that would allow us to have that. The town hall meeting, we can do more than that. Like we could do a special meeting, which would just be that. So we have opportunities in our disposal to provide other options for them to speak. I just don't think it's in value added to make it 3 or 4 hours and we're all sitting here and hearing the same stuff. I just want to make sure it's clear that we want the information, but we also don't want to be here till 11 o'clock every council meeting because we've had 400 discussions and we have to defer lots of items on the agenda because of it. That will halt production of business in the municipality. So there's a delicate balance there, and I think I leave that a little bit up to the Reeve if this motion were to pass about how that gets that. But that's kind of where my eye is that no real limit, but allowing some flexibility to the Reeve to ask those questions of people who are wishing to speak. Is there anything else? And then go from there.
So Trevor, if I understand what you just said, you're suggesting adding discretion of the Reeve to the end of it?
Well,
would give me the authority then to ask, is there anything more?
Is there anything more to add?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm coming and speaking and I have 2 minutes and Rick comes up and says the same thing in his 2 minute speech and it goes down the line, conversation is, did we get any more value for what we've asked for? If you basically had a comment where it said, is there anything more to add? And nobody says anything else, then the conversation is, we have got all the information from the people that are here. That's my thought. Anyway, I'm one person, but that's my thought.
I believe we have a motion on the floor. Or were we just having a conversation?
No one has,
Hasn't seconded yet.
no one has.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you put a motion forward or not.
I did, but it needs a second.
Yeah, there's no second.
If you want to, did you want to make an amend to that, a motion saying that the discretion of the Reeve and we all understand, to take care of the time limit? Would that?
That makes a lot of sense, and to your discretion, to the Reeves' discretion, and we just go from there, so add that to the motion.
So if you don't mind reading the motion, and we'll see if there's a second.
So that staff are directed to amend the procedure bylaw to allow the public 2 minutes per person to speak on agenda items at the start of the council meeting and at the discretion of the Reeve.
To be concluded by the discretion of the Reeve.
Further discussion? Do we have a seconder? Kevin? Seconds. All in favor? Carry. Sticking with that just for a little while on 12.1.2. When I was on council too, at the end of the council meetings, we allowed the press to ask questions about decisions we had made. I see the press as our most important tool for getting our message out, for transparency. We don't have that now. What are council's thoughts on allowing the press to talk? When I say the press, I mean the legitimate press. And we can argue with the word of legitimacy another day. Or you could put it as the discretion of the Reeve again, and it'll fall upon myself. Thoughts? Trevor?
So my thoughts is that the media has the opportunity to ask us after a meeting for whatever decisions that have been made. They have the opportunity to come and directly ask us questions via interviews or whatever the case may be. They also have the opportunity to do that after the fact. They can send us for a request for an interview. They can email us. They've got our information. I'm not sure that, like, if it's the idea of letting them have the public floor, I'm not against it. I guess my question is that they haven't really not had the opportunity to ask us the questions or the decision of council. In all honesty, the Reeve, you are the voice of council. So at the end of the day, if an interview is done by members of council, it's of our opinion on whether we like the motion or not. But we all are respectful of the fact that the motion was made and the decision of council was made. So I treat it as that they have that opportunity already. I don't necessarily think it's needed to add it to the public conversation. However, I could be wrong.
Further conversations? Seeing none, we'll drop that one. That's probably good. There was no motion, no. Anything else on 12.1.1? Can we have a motion to receive that report then? With the changes? Chris, first, Paul, seconds. All in favor? Passed. So we pretty well took in 12.1.2, so we're gonna go right down to council remuneration now. Okay. Oh, sorry, the schedule, yes, sorry. So 12.1.2 is now on the floor, council meeting schedules. Please.
So, as Reed Bailey has indicated, the next item on the agenda is council's meeting schedule. The procedure bylaw does speak to the location, time, and notice requirements for all meetings of council. And at the end of, near the end of the calendar year, essentially the clerk brings forward a report requesting that council approve their regular meeting schedule for the following year. There are different types of meetings. This, for example, is an inaugural meeting. You'll have your regular council meetings, which will be advertised. You will have special council meetings to deal with matters that come up outside of a regular council meeting schedule. And there's a whole process for that. So in terms of the locations of regular council meetings, they're held here in the council chambers in Wingham. The procedural bylaw does speak to one meeting of council per year taking place in the Blythe and East Molinage wards. That's currently in the procedural bylaw. The regular meetings of council as currently is the first and third Monday of every month. When the meeting falls on a statutory holiday, it's held the following Tuesday. And meetings start at 7 p.m. and finish at 11 unless council passes a motion allowing for the council meeting to extend past 11 o'clock. Budget meetings are considered regular meetings of council. Council is also in the procedure bylaw required to hold a minimum of one town hall public meeting per year. That historically has been held in the fall, but it's minimum of one, so there's no limit on the maximum. Another consideration in terms of establishing meeting schedule are conferences. We do require quorum for a council meeting. So if there's a conference, a number of you are going to be attending the conference, we don't have quorum, then we tend not to schedule accordingly. The one conference in particular that tends to impact most municipalities' meeting schedules is the AMO conference, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. It's held in August. So historically, what you'll see is in the month of August, you'll have 2 council meetings per month, but in August, you'll see 1 council meeting. Usually, in this case, the third Monday of the month. In terms of start times, the times thus far, the procedure bylaw says 7 o'clock. Council can change that start time as long as it's advertised and council follows what has been advertised. And there's some different start time options there if council so wishes to consider that. Another item of discussion perhaps is closed session. Closed sessions in the current procedure bylaw are at the end of the council meeting. So we'll have a regular council meeting that will go from 7 till say 10. We'll take a 5 or 10 minute recess and then we go into closed session. So you're making decisions about closed meeting matters later into the evening, historically, as what has taken place. So the question is whether council wants to continue that practice, or whether council wants to move where closed session falls within a council agenda. In the report, there are some proposed 2019 meeting dates. With respect to the current procedural bylaw, it says the first and third Monday of the month. And in the absence of an amendment to the procedural bylaw, which the earliest we could do that would be December 17th. Our next council meeting, as I said, is the next council meeting is December the 17th. If you amend the procedural bylaw in terms of the meeting date, time, and or location, you would pass the amending bylaw at the December 17th meeting, and it would take effect at the following council meeting, which would be, depending on what you decide, whether you decide Mondays or Tuesdays, for example. And then in terms of your time, you can do, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. You can do 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's at council's discretion as far as what you want to do. The key thing though is that whatever you decide, we advertise, and then that becomes your council meeting schedule.
So Dean, I would like to address this, give you my thoughts on it and then put it out to the council. Being on council 4 years ago, for 4 years, we did it the way it's done now. We had the closed meeting at the end. A closed meeting could take 5 minutes. It could take 2 hours. If you put it at the front of your at the front of your meeting, and you take so you start at 5 o'clock and you take a 5-minute closed meeting, and you're over, and then you don't start your council meeting till 6 o'clock, what do you do for that time, number one? And number two, then do we end up paying staff for 2 meetings or just 1 meeting? So the other thing would be, we were looking at having developers come all the way from Calgary, and we're gonna have them come from Calgary to Toronto, drive all the way up here, and then maybe sit out in that hall for 2 hours, or maybe 5 minutes, and we're gonna ask them to develop 400 houses. We put them in a good mood before they've got to the council. It's up to you guys, but I would recommend leaving the closed meeting till the end. Start times, it really doesn't matter to me. I think most of us said it does not matter. Have that thought, have that conversation. Monday or Tuesday, again, from my personal point of view, for a council meeting, it's good one way or the other, but I would really take a serious look at putting that closed meeting first. You could end up costing the town a lot of money. And again, and I'm sure Trevor knows that you go into a closed meeting, it could be 5 minutes or it could be 4 hours. No, it will never be 4 hours, but it could be an hour and 15 minutes. Our meetings aren't long. We're only 2-3 hours on a council meeting. So I think we should all be fresh, whether we're dealing with a closed meeting at the beginning or the end, or we're dealing with the actual council meeting at the beginning or the end. We should be fresh anyway. We should be well advised what's going on. With that, I would like to throw it out to the floor for discussion.
Bailey, so you just go down the list here as far as what we're thinking then?
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of starting at 6 o'clock and do the closed at the end. The reasons you gave make sense. Whether our meetings are Monday nights or Tuesday nights, Tuesday is well, I've said it before, problematic for me, but it's not insurmountable. So if the group went that way, then we go that way. So I guess Monday night would be my preference in that session. Regarding the budget meetings, you said the budget meetings are regular council meetings.
Correct.
In the past, how many meetings are required for the budget?
Through Reed Bailey?
Yeah.
So you'll have initially your first meeting will be 2 back-to-back meetings. So for example, it might be a Tuesday, Wednesday, for example. Then depending on, what council's thoughts are with respect to that budget, then there's often a follow-up. It may be another 1 meeting or 2 meetings, depending on the direction that council gives.
All in the same month or not?
No, usually, so for example, we'll have a 2-day back-to-back budget meeting in January.
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on the direction of council, maybe the first part of February, staff need time to act on the direction that council has given. And then depending on the direction, it could be a 1-day meeting or it could be 2, depending on how much more discussion is needed on it. Generally speaking, you'll have, those 2 time things. There's no minimum or maximum, I guess, in terms of how many budget meetings you have. But typically you'll, 3 to 4 meetings for your budget.
Okay, I was scared into maybe 10.
No, you can have 10, but.
If it's that, then okay,
Yeah.
that'd be fine. So 6 o'clock for me, preference, Monday or Tuesday night would work, and having the closed at night, or sorry, at the end.
Other councillors? Yeah, Kevin?
having this status quo for the first little while, while we get our feet wet, might be, I would say would be quite a little less to worry about. And I was just curious, I know a lot of the other municipalities have their councils on different nights. And if we have to have any presentation at their councils through that, or they're dealing with us, that would be difficult if it was all on the same night, to coordinate between the different councils. And I'm not sure if the media would have to hit all 5 councils at the same night. So it might be difficult for them too. So I'd say the status quo is fine with me.
Monday's fine with me and post at the end.
Monday and it's closed is fine.
Yeah, for me.
Anita, you too?
I would agree to that.
Okay, Rick?
Seems like the majority to me. I'm fine. I'm
Um,
fine with
So 6 o'clock start then?
6 o'clock start, close meeting at the end. Now let's discuss Monday or Tuesday. You want to keep it status quo, or do you want to switch? I will say one thing about, and sorry, Chris, I know it's a little difficult for you. I find it, when I was on council, difficult on a Friday afternoon in the summertime, because Bernie doesn't work Friday afternoons in the summertime, but anyway, that's all jokes aside. If you had your council meetings on Tuesday, you would have Monday and Tuesday to get your information. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Dwayne, you would not then send us the information on Monday. We would still continue to get the council meeting information on Friday afternoon. So when it comes to the days, to give consideration to the fact that if you go Tuesday, then you do have an extra day to ask questions, and you will find as you move into this that it's better for you to ask those questions ahead of time to the department heads or to Dwayne here to get the information. I'm just going to suggest that Tuesday may work out better for that reason and that reason only. If you're fine with getting it Monday at 4:30 or noon or 2 o'clock or whenever it rolls in, and you think Friday afternoon and all day Monday is enough time, then Monday it is. It'll still work out. And again, I just want to throw out for thoughts on that one. So Monday or Tuesday. Anita?
Can we just try it for half a year on the Monday, and if it really is a challenge, then switch then to
Yes,
the
we can.
Tuesday?
Yes, we can. Correct, Rick?
I have a problem with the first Tuesday and the second last Tuesday of the month.
Then Monday it is. All councils are going to be here, so Rick just made our decision for us, as far as I'm concerned. Now, do we have to put this to a vote? No, you're going to bring it back again.
Yeah, but we'll need a motion to amend the procedural bylaw for a 6 o'clock start time. And I guess that's the only thing we're amending is the time.
Do I have a motion? Somebody put that motion forward? Anita puts the motion forward, seconder. Paul does. Paul seconds. Thank you very kindly. So moving on to 12.1.3, council remuneration. Oh, sorry, dear, I forgot to do the motion to accept that, so. I'm bad. Do I have a motion to accept the previous?
I'll
Thank
second
you.
it.
Yeah. Go ahead, first and second. Yeah, that's what I thought. Just forgot to ask for that. Okay, now moving on to council remuneration. Again, go ahead with this one and this one.
Sure.
Please.
So the municipality has a remuneration bylaw. The remuneration bylaw speaks to remuneration for councillors as well as expenses. It establishes the honorarium that each member of council and the REIV receives. It speaks to meeting pay, committee and board pay, per diem allowance, meal and mileage allowances, and conference and convention allowances. The bylaw was updated this past spring and establishes a maximum amount of $2,500 available to all members of council on an annual basis for attendance at conferences and conventions. Expenses that go above and beyond the $2,500 are the responsibility of individual council members. The last increase in the council honorarium, meeting pay, council board pay, per diem, and meeting allowance was in 2006. In 2010, the meal allowance was increased from $50 to $75 a day. And the report speaks for a little bit more detail around that, including meal allowances, travel expenses, and as well in terms of how to submit per diem or an expense claim. And we'll come to this a little bit later, but we've set them up on your iPads so that you will submit them the form and everything is on your iPad to complete and submit. Sorry. The other item for information at this point, and something that we as staff will be bringing back to council for a decision, is with respect to a change in the Federal Income Tax Act. Federal Income Tax Act has been in place since 1947, and it has allowed for a 1/3 tax exemption on councillor honorariums that the council members receive. So when you file your income tax, 1/3 is exempted. This is something that all municipalities across the province are currently reviewing and looking at, both in the lower tiers here in the county and as well at the county level. There's different ways of handling it, and we'll bring back a report in the future regarding that. But the purpose of this is to let you know that this 1/3 tax exemption is no longer. And we'll be bringing back a report for council to consider how you wish to proceed on that on a go-forward basis. The tax exemption is for information purposes. We'll be bringing back a report in the future. The remuneration and the expenses, that's for council's information. If you do want to make any changes to that, direct staff and we would bring back an amended bylaw.
So on that, I'm going to open it up again to the council floor on the conversation that Dwayne just had with us. Comments or questions? Go ahead, Chris.
Reeve Bailey, it'd be nice to know where regarding remuneration, where we fit in with our neighboring municipalities. That would be my only question, comment.
So I know there was a report done in the previous council about that exact comparison of neighboring municipalities per diem versus stipends, between the whole lingo and just of what that remuneration looks like. So yeah, that report could probably easily be brought back to this council for review. My comment has always been, I find it very difficult in having the conversation about how much you pay yourself. You know, it's a conversation about, it's not, you know, you want to make sure that we're not all here for the money. You know, I'm pretty sure that, at least I'm not anyways, the fact the number of hours you put in, for what your honorarium is on an hourly rate is not ideal, but I always do find it very difficult when you're having a conversation about how you pay yourself. So, but it would be good, I think, for this council to know what that information is and how it's presented, and you know, and then this council can make that decision on its the tax exemption thing is a different. That's a legislative thing. We can't change that. So, you know, that's the federal government that has decided that. So we have to make those decisions based on what that is, reasonableness, I guess, from a perspective. So I would leave it. But exactly what you're saying, Councillor Palmer, is that information could easily be brought back to council.
Further conversation? I'm just go ahead, Chris.
Reeve Bailey, I know I realize it's a hard discussion, you know, paying yourself. It was 2006, that was a long time ago. Just curiosity, knowing where we are, and if we're sitting in the middle, in the ballpark of Huron County's municipalities, I'm happy. That's all, just fairness, that's it.
Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will add just a bit. With the tax exemption gone, Some of us are going to get hit by 30%. Some of us are going to get hit by 10%, depending on what you make outside of this council. So it does change things to a little. You could find some people working for half the price that they did 6 years ago. Donna, what's our, if you don't mind me asking, what's our yearly budget?
For council?
Yeah, no, for the
For-
town. What are we doing? 30 million or 13? I forget.
Well, it depends on capital, but somewhere around, like 15 was this past.
15 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're doing 15 million a year. And you're talking about, and you're sitting with folks that are making $100,000 a year. So nobody should be embarrassed in this council to talk about your per diem. Okay? So I just want to throw those few things out. So when you bring your information back, keep that in the back of your mind. Some of us are going to get hit hard. Some of us aren't. So moving forward onto the next councils, it could have an effect on who wants to run. Thank you, Mr. Ford. Trevor.
So I would make the motion to receive the report of the CAO regarding council remuneration and request staff to bring back the report of the comparison between North Huron and the other other municipalities' remuneration bylaws. So that's the motion I would put forward.
Okay, seconder, Chris. Thank you. Wayne, do you want to speak to 12.1.4, the orientation to code of conduct?
Sure. So to assist council to undertake municipal business, we have an established code of conduct. The Municipal Act does set out a number of policies, processes, and requirements that for municipalities relating to accountability and transparency. The Act requires that we have a code of conduct, that we appoint integrity commissioner, that we appoint a municipal ombudsman, that we have a closed meeting investigator, and that we have an accountability and transparency policy. The code of conduct establishes guidelines on how council is to conduct themselves regarding conflict of interest, gifts and benefits, confidentiality, public comment, communications and media relations, use of township property, and work of a political nature. As well, in terms of how council is to conduct themselves at meetings, how they are to represent the township, influence on staff, or more so not influence on staff on an individual perspective, business relations, paid agent, encouraging respect for the township. It also speaks to harassment, handling of breaches of the code, and requires council to sign acknowledgement of receipt of the code of conduct. Your integrity commissioner, again, is a requirement of the Act, and essentially if there's a member of the public, for example, that would like something investigated regarding a conduct of a councillor or any of those things that I've mentioned, then the integrity commissioner would conduct the investigation and they would bring back a report. Municipal ombudsman is essentially an ombudsman is an individual or that if an individual of the public feels that they're not receiving the information that they are looking for example, or that they feel they've been treated, unfairly, for example, then they could go to the ombudsman. The ombudsman would basically be almost a mediator between the two parties. Closed meeting investigator, essentially there's provisions under the Municipal Act in which council can go into closed session. If an individual feels that council has gone to closed session inappropriately, they can ask for an investigation, and the investigator would determine whether or not council went into closed session in accordance with the Act. And with respect to accountability and transparency, it provides the guidance for delivery activities and services for the municipality, ensuring that things are consistent with that. So the whole we need to be open and transparent in our discussions and our decision-making processes. There are times under the Municipal Act where we do need to have discussions in closed session. And those discussions will take place. So just for your information, the County of Huron, so there were some legislative changes to the Municipal Act that basically resulted in a group being formed of all the lower tier municipalities in the county. And what ended up happening was the county issued a request for proposal for a firm to provide these services being integrity commissioner, closed meeting investigator, and municipal ombudsman. So for council's information, Erda Berlis has been appointed as your investigator for those 3 services. And we have a retainer with them. In addition to them conducting investigations, they're also going to be assisting us with, for example, our code of conduct. I've asked them, for example, we're going to do a review of our code of conduct and see if we need to make any changes to it, for example. We have an accountability and transparency policy. We'll have a look at that and look at what changes we need to make to that as well. So this report is for council's information. So you know that Erda Berlis has been appointed. And if there are investigations, they will be the ones that will be undertaking those.
So we just need a motion to
Receive the report.
Can I have a motion to receive that report? Are there any comments or questions from the council?
Should we second it?
Well, I'll get it, yeah. Can I have a seconder? Okay, Rick seconds it. Just a point though, I was going to wait and see if anybody wanted to make changes. And I'm not quite sure whether I should do the first and second or just the first. So I'll work on that as we go along, but okay, I wasn't sure. So now we'll have the conversation. Christopher.
Dwayne through the reef. Is there anything regarding the conduct of any of us after our council meeting regarding the agenda items? I say this because it happened to me at another council. I got screamed at level 10 the next day because that counselor did not like what I said and threatened the whole ball of wax. Now, it was very unbecoming of a council. It just turned me right off. That guy was gone in my eyes. So, it's he says, she says, or he says, whatever. But is it in there that we are to act, properly regarding our agenda items, even at home? Or is the world open and we can just blurt off what we want at somebody? A ratepayer.
Through you, Reeve. Essentially, so the code of conduct, it doesn't apply just to, 7 to whatever time of your council meetings. You are a councillor with your municipality, you're representing the municipality. So, I can't speak to the circumstances in terms of the details, in terms of what you were dealing with. But if you so wish, you could file a complaint with the municipality and the municipality can do an investigation and make a determination on that, for example.
I'd still like to think that it's the buck stops here, that we should leave this meeting room with integrity. Like we have integrity here, we should have integrity at home. Maybe it's not written down black and white, but I guess I'll just assume that we will all act proper. Because it influences how the ratepayer looks at us. One bad apple, not here, again, but that was a bad apple that I experienced. So it just tarnished the whole council to me. Trevor?
So there is a part in the conflict of interest or the code of conduct that basically says any harassment of any member or staff or any member of the public is misconduct. So if I have a code of conduct to be respectful in the township business to you as my equal, I also have that same code of conduct when I'm talking to the ratepayers out in the public gallery, out in the public, at the grocery store, at the public, at a county meeting, at a county function, at a township function. Those functions are still a requirement. You are a representative of the municipality, whether not just here and not just the fact that you took the oath of office tonight. When we leave here, we are representatives of the municipality from 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. every day for the next 4 years. So, I don't disagree that maybe the code of conduct, we need to look to see if it needs to be updated or adjusted for certain instances like this. But, when I look at it, harassment is a big thing in today's world. We need to make sure we're safe. We feel we're safe when we're doing our job, because in all honesty, we are representatives. And, I use the term, you give respect if you receive respect. And, that's the kind of thing where, that's where I think we have to be. I think, we're going to have this no matter what. There's going to be difficult decisions that we make. And there are going to be people who are emotionally charged about certain decisions that we make. So as long as I think we're respectful to the public on those decisions that we make, I think we can be fair that, if you have a complaint of an individual, feel free. I respect that as a counselor and as a colleague. If you feel threatened by anything that we do as a group or individually, I think we are held to a different standard than the general public. That's perception, but it's fact. So we need to hold ourselves to that.
Further comments? I'm just going to add a bit to that, Chris. When I first got on council last time around, I had a very rough go. Thought I was doing my job, thought I was doing a good job, but apparently some other councillors didn't take too kindly to the way I was conducting myself. I didn't realize I wasn't the reeve. But it was in council, it never left the council. I have been the general manager of up to 150 people at a time in some pretty rough organizations. I have always, if there's a problem, you come to me and we will take care of it. We will sit down with who's ever arguing and discuss it, like gentlemen or ladies, okay? If there is anybody out in the public that's harassing you, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available for a conversation with anybody at any time. Never take, any of you counselors, and any staff, never take anything on the chin. That my job is to run this show, and I will run it. And I have successfully run 4 shows, and this is number 5 for me. And I have dealt with the head office of Walmart, right down to the guy in the shipping and receiving at the Woodstock Walmart. So I understand business from one to the other, and I can deal with it. Please come to me. Don't carry it. There's no reason to have a burden on this job. Okay? Further comments? Okay. So I think that one is just to receive too. There's no more on that. Going to move on then to 12.1.5. Council emails, iPads, eScribe software. And I guess Dwayne's going to take that one away. Oh, sorry.
I think we do have to move the recommendation to receive the report. I do recall. I don't think was there a mover and a seconder?
No, there was not. No.
There was a mover.
Oh, yeah, as we discussed.
Councilor
Wasn't all in
Ballmer
favor.
Yeah, we just didn't do a vote.
And
Councilor McBurney, we just need to approve.
all in favor?
Sorry.
Now, moving on to the iPads. I believe I'll hand it over to Dwayne again.
Yes. So this is a report regarding council email, iPads, and eScribe software. So council is provided with a number of tools to assist in your communications with the residents and with the staff. We provide you with a corporate email account, a mobile electric device, which in this case is an iPad, to access your email and to access the meeting management software, which is eScribe. So as municipality, we have retained, or we have eScribe software that we use to prepare and publish the council agenda. You should all have now received, if you haven't already, your iPads. The iPads have been loaded with eScribe, and we've also put the form on there with respect to submission for per diems and your expenses. As well, you should have received a little slip of paper that would have your email, your North Huron email account, as well as any sort of passwords that you need to access to gain access onto your iPad. In terms of communication from the municipality with council or with an individual member of council, it will be through the North Huron email account. Okay. I know since the election and up until today, there's been some communication that has gone back and forth through personal email. Now that you're sworn into office, we will be communicating through the North Huron account. The reason for that is in terms of everything is tracked and everything is traced. So we have something called MFIPA, Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act. And we will sometimes get requests for information. So if we were to get a request about an email that you sent, for example, we may ask for you to turn in your iPad, and we may have to go into your iPad and pull out information that has been requested. I don't want to get into a big, long discussion, but the Ontario Ombudsman, who oversees things, and the Ontario Privacy Commissioner, does conduct investigations regarding this. So just in terms of my word of advice, basically, is conduct your municipal business using your corporate email account. Okay. If you do anything on personal and it is advancing the business of municipality, we may ask you to turn in your private device if you have used your private device for municipal business. Okay. If we were to get a Freedom of Information request. So we have something called it's called the cell phone policy. We're actually in the process of reviewing that and amending that and broadening it to become the mobile device policy. So that's currently under review. We currently have a new draft policy prepared. We will be bringing that forward. This says for the December 17th council meeting, we may move that to the January meeting, just in terms of December 17th council meeting is shaping up to have a few things on it. And so that's one that we will address, but we may leave it until early in the new year. But that policy will apply to staff and as well to council. So that's something to be aware of. If you require any assistance with your iPad in terms of how to access your agenda, feel free to contact staff here at Town Hall and we'll get you set up and we'll get you going. If you haven't, you now have your email addresses. So if you require assistance in terms of how to access your email, again, contact us at Town Hall. We'll certainly assist you with that. Are there any questions around any of that?
Sure. Just a comment. Email is a lovely thing. However, I would just a word of caution to councillors and is we have to make sure that we're doing the business of the municipality in this chamber. So obviously meeting information that could be sent out via the staff or the Reeve, we really shouldn't be communicating back and forth as a collective group because that could be determined as a meeting. So I voice that because obviously I have some experience in being a counselor and listening to a lot of media discussion 4 years ago about this exact thing. So, you know, we had training from a meeting lawyer that specifically stated that, like, you have to be careful about what you're communicating within your staff account, because it obviously, you can't move the business forward without being a public meeting. And really an email is a difficult thing. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have email. So it was a harder thing to do. But today we keep the technology ages make us be more prepared, but also provide some risk. So I just use that as an example of caution when we get emails and to start a discussion as opposed to just F for your information.
Yes.
Reeve, so say I wanted to email you, Trevor.
Yep.
Because it's something you knew. We need training. You've had it. We need training about that, because then how do you prevent, say, then you ask Rick about the same thing? Where does it stop? Is there a fail-safe? Is there something that you can do that all of a sudden that email sort of stops with you, and then you can carry it on or something like that?
Well, I guess the conversation needs to be, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, really the conversation is if Reeve Bailey sends out a response for information purposes only, and you, Councillor Palmer, have a question, you should ask the question directly to the Reeve, but not provide me don't provide me comment about what your question is. Because if I get your information and the Reeve's question, and then I chime in and have everybody on it, then the conversation is we're having a discussion. And really, we shouldn't be having a discussion until we're in council chambers. So my question has always been, the way I've always treated it is, if I have a question about what the Reeve or what the staff have asked, I send it directly to them. And then after that, the staff can send it back out to us for information purposes only, or it comes to the next council meeting in a report that basically then has the conversation again, but everybody has a chance to see the same questions that you have. You can ask your question in public forum to the staff, to the Reeve, to whatever, so that everybody has the same transparency. Problem is, if we do all that through email, the public doesn't know that conversation is being happened, and it shouldn't happen, because that's moving the business forward, and those businesses decisions shouldn't be made outside of this council chambers.
Thank you, Trevor. I would strongly suggest that you, going with what Trevor said, and you know I'm the worst, I would strongly suggest that if you're requesting information, you go to a department head or to the CO here and ask them to ask and let them make that decision. Because the problem you have with emails is you send it to me and then I forward it to Trevor and Trevor forwards it to Rick, and first thing you know, you got a quorum. And you may never ask that question, but let's not go there. And I know you've got a lot of emails from me, but as of today, you'll see that's going to change. Because as of today, we are all counselors. We are not just the ordinary people anymore. I don't want to overwhelm the CEO, but having said that, it is his job to make sure, and he can let me know if he would prefer that I get involved or whatever, or come to me first, and then I could take it up with him. Dwayne may want to speak to that, but I would caution everybody, because what happens with emails, and I'm a servicer, I'm a warranty servicer, and I go into a house and the lady says, "You do such a good job," and I go, "Well, that's funny. This company was just telling me you told them differently." Emails travel, and everybody can have your email. So I would strongly suggest we conduct our business in here. Feel free to email me as head of council. I think I would just pass it on to Dwayne, or Dwayne would be the best way to go. It is a very, very delicate thing to use. I know it's easy. I know I'm sitting in a coffee shop and I'm emailing everybody on my break. It stops today, because you can get in trouble, and you can get in trouble personally. So I'm going to strongly suggest that we conduct it, as Trevor once said, at one time we didn't have all these devices. So let's use them for information purposes only. And it's just a suggestion to the councillors. Further discussion? Chris?
I just want to do things proper.
Yes.
So if we get our information Friday at 4:30 and Monday morning, I found that I've got a big question, and it's one of the department heads.
Yep.
Do I email the department head, or do I go to you, Dwayne? Or do I go to Reeve? What's the proper way?
So if you have a report and you're looking for information, additional information.
Question, yeah.
Right? Depending on what the question is, you can always email me, okay? If it's something that, you're looking for information about, I don't know, you can email the department head and copy me, okay?
Okay.
So the key thing is that I know the question has been asked, and then depending on the question, the department head and I, it may be something then that we may address at the council, bring it back here to the bigger group. Or it could go to an individual department head, and there may be something else going on in the municipality that I know about, but the department head may not know about. So in that case, I would converse with the department heads, and, we would make sure that, all the information was brought forward to all of council. So you can always email me and I can deal with it. Depending on what it is, if you want to email the department head directly and copy me, that's acceptable too.
Sorry, one more question.
Mm-hmm.
So is our little magic book, does it have everybody's emails loaded? Or how do we,
On
our
your
machine?
On your Outlook, there's an Outlook. On our email system, we have an address book
Okay,
that you'll
So
have
it's loaded.
access to
all right.
in terms of for staff, for example.
Further questions? Motion to accept the report.
Move it.
Trevor moves. Seconder, please. Kevin seconds. Thank you kindly. Moving on to council committee reports, 12.1.6. You want to take that, Dwayne?
Yeah. So this is a report that provides an overview of the existing committees and boards that currently exist in the municipality. So in terms of the committees and the boards, essentially they dissolved on November the 30th. So council needs to decide what committees they want to establish. And once they decide what committees they want to establish, then in terms of who they want to consider for those various committees and boards, in terms of council representation on those committees and boards. So just in terms of one of the committees and boards here, you'll see, and we have a separate report regarding the Economic Development Committee. That is a committee that has been in existence up until the end of November. Essentially, it has dissolved. The committee is asking for consideration of continuation of that particular group, but that's a decision of council. So essentially, in terms of the committee and boards that are laid out there, they permit members of council to gain knowledge in a variety of different areas, provides an informal forum for learning and discussing issues with the public, colleagues, and staff. It also is the opportunity for new and experienced members to gain knowledge and confidence when considering other political positions. And as well, the Reeve is an ex officio member on all the committees and boards. So there's that continuity across that. Council members are required to submit. We have included in the report a chart of the various committees and boards to let us know which committees and boards you're interested in. And as well, I guess prior to completion of that, in terms of are there any new committees and boards you would like? Or are there some committees and boards here that you don't want anymore? In terms of some of the committees and boards do have public appointments. And actually, we will be bringing a report forward to you at the December 17th meeting regarding Police Services Board. The public representative on the Police Service Board resigned or tendered his resignation. There's currently a vacancy on that board. As directed, staff advertised, we have received applications, and we will be bringing those forward for council's consideration and ultimately looking for an appointment to fill that vacancy that's currently on that board. The other committees that require committee members are the Wingham Landfill Site Board, and as well as the Wisteria Board. We have one individual sits on the Wisteria Board, which Wisteria Power is for Wingham. We have an individual that has sat on that board on our behalf. And so the question is in terms of, essentially that person is no longer on the board until such time as council gives direction as far as who they want to sit on that board. So I guess at this point, what I'd be looking for is any comments or feedback on the committees and boards that are currently existing. There are some, that, are recommended. So
I'll take that over. If you folks have the discussion, the committee boards sitting in front of you, let's start with the elephant in the room. And I believe we can look these all over and we don't have to make a decision today, is what you're saying. We can put our names forward for the 17th, or you'd like a decision today?
No, so what we're recommending here is essentially these are the committees and boards. Based on the existing committees and boards, we've included a chart for individual members of council in terms of what committees and boards that you'd be interested in sitting on. That's assuming that you want to keep that particular committee or board. I mean, if there's a committee here that you don't want to carry on with, or you don't want to have, then we'll strike it. There may be new committees that you want.
But ask Trevor, if you don't mind, to speak to the police right off the bat. And where I would like you to go with this is the police board will no longer be the Wingham Police Board in 2 or 3 months. Then we're going to go to an OPP board. So the police board right now, I believe, focuses on Wingham only. But when 3 months from now, do we dissolve that board and create a OPP board for all of North Huron, or does this board continue on? As the chairman of that board, could you fill us in on how, or would you think we should put somebody on this board, or we should call it the proper name now? Because once we go OPP, it is not a Wingham designated police. You guys can all sit on the board. You maybe can now. But, somebody from East Wawa-Nosh or somebody from Blythe may want to sit on it too, because it is now going to affect everybody. And Trevor, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so that committee is technically called the North Huron Police Services Board. That's currently what it's called today. It only deals with, function is really the Wingham Police Service, but it's the North Huron Police Services Board. So there's an agreement that we have our Wingham Police Service, but then we also have a section agreement with the OPP to cover East Wawa-Nosh and Blythe. When that board will still exist when the disbandment of the Wingham Police Service happens. It will then become an advisory board to the OPP, no different than any other board. We have the opportunity to provide feedback to the OPP about services and what we would like. It all has to come through council, because we are an advisory board. The council determines the level of service that it requires. We currently the North Huron Police Services Board doesn't look at operations. That's the role of the chief, no different than an OPP. So the OPP, we don't look at the level of service. that's a municipality function because they determine what the level of service is. We would provide feedback or determination about what we would like to see in our police services board. The issue is today is that we have 2 provincial appointees, 1 community rep, and 2 members of council. Well, right now, that's a 5-person board where you technically, in all honesty, most of the OPP kind of, those boards that represent OPP areas have a 3-person board. So that's, there's a little bit of a differences about what you require. I suspect there has been lots of conversations about what this board should look like or will look like. My concern is a 3-person board is very hard because we have run that in that now where you have people who are on the board, you have a 3-person board, everybody's got to be at every meeting almost, because if you don't have quorum. So, it's a concern from a standpoint. So, as that relates, there will be still a North Huron Police Services board. How it functions might be different than what it functions today, because we won't have budgets and all that stuff because it's not really a function of budgets. We don't have an operation. And over the next 3 years, we already know what the number is going to be. So the function about that board will be completely different. And I suspect over the next 2 to 3 months, there'll be lots more information or questions that we will have when that board is established about how that board functions going forward.
So since it is the North Huron Police Board, then I guess because of the issues with Blythe, the Blythe councillors may want to think strongly on one of you sitting on it. Go ahead, Trevor.
So I did want to mention, so the North Huron Police Services Board has had an East Wawanosh chair. It has had Wingham residents. It has had East Wawanosh residents. It has had Blythe residents. There's no requirement that you are a Wingham resident to sit on that board. Doesn't matter. If you're a municipal member of council, any member of council can sit on it, including the REIT. So it's not geographically based. So if you want to be a part of the board, there's no requirement that you cannot be because of where you live.
With that, I'm going to open this up to the floor for discussion on all these. And again, Wayne, we don't have to make decisions on people tonight, or you would prefer that?
No, just in terms of the committees, I guess we'd just like some input in terms of, again, are there any committees there that this council does not want to continue with? And that in terms of appointments to those various committees and boards,
Okay,
that'll come at a later date.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's have this discussion with these. So the police board, obviously, we're keeping. Planning Advisory Committee. I guess that's only me.
No, as a
Chairman.
chairperson,
Yeah.
and then there's the committee itself.
Yeah, the whole slot down here. Pretty well have to have that one.
Well, so just in terms of the Planning Advisory Committee, what it has been is all of council. And I guess the question is, if you're intending to move it forward as all of council, then so an advisory committee basically receive planning applications, reviews them, and then makes a recommendation to council. But if you're, as all of council, receiving everything, there is really, the purpose is kind of, you're advising yourself, right? Some municipalities will have, different compositions of a planning advisory committee. Depends on what council wishes to do.
I open that up to the floor.
Yeah,
Yep, go ahead, Chris.
your point is well made, Dwayne. I would suggest three members perhaps. Like with 3 plus, who else? Staff? Who else would be on the committee?
Yeah, you can.
Or is that up to us to decide?
No,
There'd be
through the
3
region.
members. Would we invite
through the REIV, essentially, you could have 3 members of council, and certainly the planner, and another staff person on that. Essentially to sit down and discuss planning applications and that before they're brought to council.
Just, probably Trevor's gonna go over it. But this board, whether it's 3 or 6 people, it happens during the council meeting. So if you had 3 people on the board, the rest would just sit here and do nothing?
Through you.
Yep.
REIV, in terms of essentially the committee would meet they would have to advertise their meetings, they would have to take minutes, right? Like any other committee of council. Those minutes from those committee meetings would be put onto the council agenda, right? And on the council agenda, there would be, in the minutes, there would be a recommendation to council with regard to what they recommend council does with a particular planning matter or planning application.
So we would not have that during the council meeting. That would be a separate meeting.
Well, they would, the committee would review and discuss the application. It would be brought to council for a decision. Committee cannot make a decision. They can only advise, right? So the decision would rest with council, but all of the discussions and all that sort of stuff would all have taken place when it comes to council. Okay.
Yeah, one of the reasons I think, in past practice about why it has always been within a council meeting is if you take it outside the council meeting, that's another day or another half a day or whatever the case may be, about having to find time to schedule this meeting, a public meeting, mind you, and then those discussions. These are all about zoning applications, planning, severances, those type of discussions, whereas council has always been, council has to make those zoning changes or look at their zoning bylaw, which council has to look at on its own. So I think the intention has always been council would look at it collectively, because collectively we're gonna have to make the decision if the zonings are wrong or the bylaw has some issue with it or whatever. The question then is as you would notice, is we would always go out of regular session. We would go into a planning advisory committee and then go back out of planning advisory committee and go back into regular council session. So the planning advisory committee and the council meeting would happen generally at the pre-existing council happened the same night. The public information was all there at the same night. The planner would come here, talk about it the same night. So it just basically was easier because then to find extra time for the planner to come and make their suggestions to public, they're going to have it all at the same point. We have the opportunity to have a public meeting. We can include it in the public meeting when we have it.
Well said, Trevor. I think Trevor hit the nail on the head there. I can't see spending money on another meeting when we can have it during the council meeting. Any more thoughts? Anybody else with thoughts? Okay. So we'll just keep that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Yes, it's good to hear the explanation. That makes a lot of sense. But when I came before the election to witness, to watch council meeting in action, the planner would stand there and talk about it, show pictures, and then make a recommendation. So is that?
Sorry, Reeve, that it was the planning advisory committee meeting. And then that recommendation, in all honesty, comes from the planning advisory committee to the council in form of a bylaw later on in the bylaw section. So we as a planning advisory committee could defer it. We don't have to make a decision. We don't have to recommend anything to council at the time. But that's the intention of that information. It's all coming to you first. The planner's information, the public conversation, all that's coming to you in the planning advisory committee. All of us as a planning advisory committee could make a decision on approve, defer, whatever. Those recommendations will be laid out by the planner on what her recommendation is as the planner. Because she has the information on the provincial policy statement, all that kind of stuff that she's got to follow in her regulations that we have to make decisions on. So she provides a recommendation to us. We accept that recommendation or do not. And then that planning advisory committee would then recommend to council. And it's, like I said, the conversation is you're recommending to yourself if it's the same. But the all honesty is the information you've got is at the same night. And you can defer it. Council could defer it too. You could have the planning advisory council say, recommend, and then you say, well, no, I really want to think about it. And council could defer it to the next meeting. Council has that opportunity at any time to defer any recommendation or any approval or denial. They can defer anything they would like. There's no requirement to move it on the same night that it happens.
Deputy Reeve. So at that point, any of us are able to make full discussion. Like say it was an example, say it was a severance and I didn't like how it was presented. I didn't like the shape of it. I didn't like the acreage of it or something like that. I am able to discuss that with everybody.
Yes.
Sway you if I need to or can or whatever. Okay, as long as that's available,
Yes.
I'm good.
Further discussion? So we're going to keep that one as is. Committee of Adjustment. Approval falls under the same.
So, yeah, so committee of adjustment essentially typically will deal with minor variances and consents. And maybe just picking up on Councillor Palmer's comment in terms of in North Huron, the county is the approval authority for severance and consent. So as a municipality, our role is basically to hear the application and then, we make a recommendation basically to the county in terms of whether or not we support it, whether we support it with changes to it, things that you've raised already. Anyways, Committee of Adjustment, it does have decision-making authority. In North Huron, our decision-making authority is limited to minor variances, essentially, because consent granting authority rests with the county. We're getting a little into the weeds on planning applications, but you're going to receive I've asked the planner to speak to council on different types of planning applications, what the process is and how those decisions get made, because there's the decision-making for different types of planning applications varies. Okay. With respect to the Committee of Adjustment, essentially, it would deal with minor variances only. So just as
Further comments from the council? Questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Property Standards Committee. Wade, I'm going to get you to explain that one. I think that was a new one. 4 members of council and what exactly that one's about.
Excuse me. So we have a bylaw enforcement officer, and our bylaw enforcement officer essentially enforces all municipal bylaws. If you think back, we had that joint orientation session when we had all local services. Essentially, the bylaw enforcement officer, you have a property standards bylaw, the bylaw enforcement officer enforces it. In the event that there is non-compliance, then the bylaw enforcement officer has the authority to lay a charge, okay? And the charge comes with a fine, and depending on what the charge is itself. The Property Standards Committee basically deals with appeals. So if you have a situation where you have a property standards bylaw, property standards officer has issued an order against a property, and the property owner is not complying with that order. So it can go to court, or the individual can appeal the charge or the ticket, whatever you want to call it, to the Property Standards Committee. The Property Standards Committee can then review it. Okay? So that's what your Property Standards Committee is about. Essentially, it's it's an appeal body for an individual who has been charged by the bylaw enforcement officer.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Is that bylaw enforcement officer in our working, or is he more from the county?
Through you,
Yes.
Reeve. So bylaw enforcement is done through our building department. And so our chief building official and building inspector that was part of their role and responsibility. Earlier this year, because of workload, we have a shared building services arrangement with Morris Turnberry. Because of the increased workload on our building services department, we have entered into a 6-month contract with an individual who is currently doing our bylaw enforcement. That is going to be up for renewal in the very near future, and it is something that we will be bringing to council as far as what council's wishes are with respect to that service.
So going back to this then, the Property Standards Committee sounds to me like we're going to be keeping it. It's something that we obviously are using. The question would be, should this be a full council? Or should this be 3 or 4 if we're dealing with property standards for everyone in North Huron? I'm not, and maybe maybe you can fill in here for me, Dwayne, but I would presume that would be quite a heavy load for 4 councillors because they're going to be attacked no matter what happens. I think that really should be the duty of a full council and move forward as a full council on decisions. There's nothing going to be pretty about this one, right? We all understand that. There's nothing going to be pretty. Nobody's going to be happy about this one. So what I'm kind of suggesting, if there's a problem in East Wawanosh and nobody from East Wawanosh is sitting on this committee, I want to throw that out on the floor and have a discussion on that. I would like to go first.
I don't think it'd be, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I can't see it being brought to council a lot during the year. So I don't think that would be a burden on council. I agree that a unified voice would be much more palatable for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other discussion? Everybody in favor of a full council handling that? That would be an in-camera, or would that be out of camera? That would be the only question I have besides that. We're dealing with a person.
Yeah. Typically, they're in open.
Okay.
In open session.
Okay. We're not one to reinvent the wheel. That's the way they are. That's the way they are. Okay. So you can make those changes. The Wingham Landfill Site Board, 3 members of council, 2 community representatives. We have 2 community representatives on now, Dwayne?
I mean, just backing up, we have the Blythe Landfill Site Board.
I got one ahead of myself. Yeah.
That's okay.
2 members of council. This again is a closed dump site in Blythe. It's the one, I'm going to actually get you to talk to so we get the right information on this.
Yeah. Sure. So it's commonly known as the Blythe Landfill Site. It's based in Centre Huron, but was used by North Huron, in particular Blythe residents. There is a board established comprised of Centre Huron council members, North Huron council members, and then staff. This board actually has been meeting regularly recently. We've been dealing with something called the contamination attenuation zone. So that board the board hasn't met for a while, but in the last year it's met fairly frequently. The board, as the REEF has indicated, it's a closed landfill site. It's not closed, it's an inactive landfill site. As an inactive landfill site, it does require monitoring. We have to monitor water, in particular contamination levels. The Ministry of Environment basically has mandated, in terms of the continuation of monitoring of that landfill site. We've been in discussions. The most recent direction that we've received from the ministry is to acquire groundwater rights. What we've determined, or what has been determined, is that there's contamination going off of the property. And so subsequently, the ministry has asked the board to, enhance monitoring, but also in terms of acquiring groundwater rights from 2 affected property owners. We have negotiated an agreement that was recently, we've negotiated an agreement with one of the property owners that has recently been accepted, and that is now done. We are now in negotiations with the second property owner, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to resolve that as well. But in terms of the board meets and gives direction to staff, regarding directions that we get. So the ministry is saying to us as North Huron and Central Huron, you need to do X. We have to meet as a board, discuss it, and then gives direction to staff.
And when the board gives directions to staff, council gets, especially if we're going to be dealing with the money, it comes before council, or council's made aware of it?
Council's made aware of it. Thus far, in terms of council negotiations, are done in camera, in closed session. Once a settlement, or once we resolve it, then it comes to council in open session.
Okay. Questions or comments from council? Seeing none, we shall move on to the Wingham Landfill Site Board. 3 members of council, 2 community representatives. Could you pick up on that first one?
Actually, I'm wondering if Sean might be the better one. Yeah. I'm not aware of any recent meetings with respect to this particular board.
Okay.
I don't know if Councillor's site. No, I'm not.
Maybe we could just find out who sits on it then for the next council meeting.
Sure.
Obviously, we need to know who the 2 community representatives are.
Yep.
Okay. That's just, any questions or comments on that from council? Seeing none, we'll move on. Emergency Control Group, at the call of the Reeve. I guess that one doesn't have to be talked about then. If you feel, Dwayne, now is the time to.
No, I'll just maybe, so just in terms of, as a municipality, we're required to have an emergency management plan as directed by the province. Gentleman named David Clark, who works for the county, is our community emergency management coordinator. He essentially will be assisting in the event that there is an emergency in the municipality. The group itself is comprised of staff from various departments. So police, fire, for example, senior management team, and is called together, when there is or an impending emergency in the municipality. The Reeves role essentially is to oversee, to have input into the decisions or the direction from the control group. Council as a whole isn't directly involved in it, but council, there is, through the emergency management plan, whereby council needs to be kept informed of the emergency, and that's one of the roles of the Reeve, is the Reeve attends emergency management control group meetings, and then reports back to council or members of council as to the status of the situation.
Robert?
Yeah, so what, I think of this as a planning exercise of emergency management. It's exactly what it is. There's once a year, the actual CEMC will put on a training day where they have all of these police, paramedic, fire, we are all in one room. the Reeve would be there. Any members of council can participate in this training session. I think last year, or the year before was flood. Obviously, the flood from June wasn't at that time, didn't happen. The issue that we had with water coming down, that actually started one. The water coming down and the concern about the water coming from Rockster and Gorey into the dam and through that. So those types of instances are training sessions that are being done, tornadoes, that type of stuff that, I think the last I had heard, there was one possibility of one talking about carbon dioxide or SO2 that's being transported within the municipality to Westcast. Well, that's a fairly substantial agent that possibly could, if there's an accident, could happen. So those types of scenarios are thought up, and what happens and how we plan for those instances, and that's why the Reeve is part of those discussions, because you don't want to be. You want to have some training involved in this before you have to get thrown into it, because it is a fairly complex, but it also is a very strenuous, it can be a very strenuous activity. So I would highly recommend when that training session comes out that not only if you want to participate, but just to be aware of what that is, because the municipality has an emergency planning document that I think we all should be aware of, that exists and should be maintained.
Thank you, Trevor. And I have participated in one of these before. I think we lost our chief of police that day. Okay. Any other comments, or go ahead, Chris?
I must have blinked. I still have a question about the dumps.
Yep.
It's regarding the East Wallinash one in the south end. Is it considered a dead dump, or?
It's not even on the list.
Through you.
Yes, go ahead.
It's actually considered inactive right now. It is not closed. Just it's not currently in use.
So it's just not, okay, so it doesn't have to be monitored, or?
There is some monitoring. There's the standard ECA requirements for monitoring that take place. It's every 2 years.
Okay.
And we just completed the one set of reports last year.
Any further questions? Okay, moving down to Energy and Environmental Committee. One member of council.
I'm not aware of any meetings or discussions regarding this committee.
We have no energy then. Okay. We could maybe look into getting that right off the books then, or look into who or what or why. Do we need it here? Can we do something?
We
Okay,
can
yeah.
research it.
Yeah,
or we
let's
can-
find out what's going on with that before we get it off the books. Go ahead, Trev.
Yeah, I guess the question too, also in saying of these meetings, we should make sure that the terms of reference of these meetings are updated to understand that council understands what the actual purpose of the committee is, and what the resolution should be at the end of this committee, at the end of these meetings. I think, Energy and Environment Committee, like I said, I don't even recall ever having minutes or anything ever presented to us.
I don't either.
So, the conversations in a lot of these committees, I would suggest probably don't have terms of reference, so that if we are going to keep them, as council, I think we should be also providing staff, comment that says, make sure we have an updated terms of reference to know what we're getting ourselves in for.
And something like this, if we haven't had a meeting in 8 years, it's obviously something that was important 12 or 14 years ago, and it's obviously faded on. So I would think we should look at if there's not a higher level of government tells us that we have to have it. I don't see spending our money on it, because obviously it can't be important if our staff has never heard of it. So you look into that for us, Dwayne. I appreciate that. Economic Development Committee, 2 members of council, 2 members of staff. One that's very important for all of us, I'm sure. And Dwayne, would you like to fill us in on this one?
Yeah, so there's actually a separate report on the council agenda regarding this particular committee, but this committee just last fall, about a year ago now, the municipality changed its model regarding economic development, and we went to a committee structure. And the committee, as it indicates, is comprised of 2 members of council, 2 members of staff, and members of the public. This committee has been working away and has got some work that's been on. They have some ongoing work right now. The committee is interested, has expressed an interest in their continuation. And on that basis, in terms of a separate report on the council agenda, they've asked for consideration of basically reestablishing them and appointing those members back onto that committee. This enables them then to continue on with the work that they're doing. I'm not sure what else I can tell you, and certainly can answer questions. Councillor Syke has been on that particular committee since its inception from a year ago. There are terms of reference developed for this committee that do exist.
So I'm going to speak to this before, and then I would like Trevor, if you don't mind again, speaking to it, because I do know you sit on the board. For me, this is very important. We did not have this type of economic development committee, but at my request, when I was on council, we put one together. I look at what's going on in economic development a little different than maybe what is going on. But I would like to continue with the economic development, the people that are on it. In all fairness, we should advertise this as well as any other position in the paper that is available for new people to come on. There's always room for more. I would think we would be doing that. But definitely this is one that we need to make work. This is one that's there and can help us. This is one that just needs maybe, I think they're doing a good job as it is, to tell you the truth. And I want Trevor, I want you to speak to this because as you've just heard, it's very important to me, and I know you sit on the committee and it's very important to you. So can you fill in the rest of the councillors with your thoughts?
Yes, my thoughts is that, you know, any information that we can get about economic development, whether it be in Blythe, East Wawanosh, or Wingham, is good. The one thing that this committee provides an opportunity is it provides business people with an avenue. We do our chair, the chair pre-existing November 30th was an actual business owner. So it wasn't a council member that was the chair. So, you know, they have a determining of what they look at our strategic plan, the North Huron strategic plan as it reads today, and they decided what to focus on within economic development from a strategic plan perspective. That plan is going to be coming up for renewal. So, you know, that's a conversation that committee is going to have to be involved in. You know, so, you know, I think there is good things that can come out of this. I think, you know, in the conversation about at the last committee meetings when this was in existence is, you know, you can advertise the cows come home. It's not, people have to make time for this committee and you got to fit it in your day-to-day. And if you're a business person, it's very difficult sometimes to fit it in. However, what I would say though is if word of mouth tends to be better advertising than the advertising in the local paper, and we have had lots of successes with that. But I would suggest that, you know, there's always room for more, and development is a critical thing. You know, developers would be an excellent opportunity to provide them an opportunity or an avenue for this committee as well. So, you know, I think it's doing good. You know, the community improvement plan was a development that came from the economic development group. So, you know, I'm thinking like that. The more traction we get and the more successes that committee can bring to the municipality, I think the more traction you're going to see with people wanting to get on the committee. To me, that's what's going to be the driving force for people wanting to be on that committee, not necessarily that we have one. As long as we're seeing some progress and some traction, I think you're going to see people want to become of it.
With that, I'm going to open it up to the council. Questions or thoughts?
So would the council reps, would they be happy from the south, the top, or?
All over, this is for North Huron.
Yes, but I mean, can it be two Wingham people or two Blythe people, you know, or two Wanash, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would suggest putting your names forward, and maybe we'll let Dwayne speak to this.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, Mr. Comment.
He wanted to know where the counselors come from. So if there were two from East Wawash, is that, and two from Wingham?
So currently, right now, or pre-November 30th, there's one in Blythe and one in Wingham. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be whoever, if there's no, again, this is not geographical. It's whoever wants some interest, and, you know, it's in the best interest of everybody. So it doesn't necessarily mean geographical. Terms of reference actually indicate that. It doesn't say you have to be from a certain place.
And speaking of that, East Wawash is not on there, but when I was on council, we were a big driver behind Euro Parts, the old school out in Belgrade. There is we're going to be looking at opportunities. I am going to be looking at opportunities to present to my council on development, maybe in East Wawash. I think we're missing a great deal of tax relief if we start using that, and this is where our economic development will play into it. It's one that I totally believe in. Anyway, other questions or comments from the none seen? Move on to Joint Health and Safety Committee. And if Dwayne, again, if you want to just give us an overview of this one.
So this is a committee actually that's required by legislation. It consists of 6 worker representatives that are appointed by their peers, and as well as 4 management representatives also appointed by their peers. This committee just met actually last week and is moving forward. The committee, in terms of looking at the health and safety of the municipality, there are policies, procedures that all staff are required to follow. And we're currently embarking upon going through and reviewing those policies and looking at what changes we need to make. It's across, it's workers and management, but it's also across departments. So we have different department representatives that sit on this particular committee. There is no council representation on the committee, but by all means, certainly if a member of council wanted to attend those meetings, or if the REEV as an ex officio member wanted to attend, that's certainly open to that. So
I open up to the council for questions or comments. Seeing none, we shall move on to the West Ontario Corporation Board. I'm going to speak to this one. This is a Wingham, and this is information for council. This is for the Wingham ward. Back when we amalgamated, I do believe, and could be corrected, Blythe had their own PUC, but sold it for a cash value and took the cash and had it in the Blythe ward. East Wawash has always had Ontario Hydro, so you've never owned anything. When our PUC became part of West Ontario, there was 8 or 9 little communities that thought rather than sell it, we'll keep it. So we own a partnership in West Ontario is what we do. We receive somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000 a year for dividends, which is directed for the Wingham ward, which brings up an interesting thing, because now with the police being gone and the community center being paid off, there's really nothing for Wingham to have its own little lump of money. And this is a conversation we're going to have at a later date. So we have a situation here where this money should, once everything is settled with the police and that, I'm going to presume, we should have some money sitting in there, and we're going to have to decide how to handle this if we're going to stay as wards, because it is part of the Wingham ward, part of the original agreement. And what are you going to do? Let it build there till it's $1 billion? Anyway, that's a conversation for another day. So we have Brett Cameron sitting on this board. He sat on the board since I was on council. He's done a fine job. I do believe he's interested in carrying on for us. In the interest of transparency, I think we should advertise the job, and if he would like, he can put his name in again. But that's the background on that I'm aware of. And again, Dwayne, unless you've got something to add to it, it's like the economic development. We have a good fit going, but there's always room for, and there should be that transparency of this council. And I'm going to open up to, again, the floor, questions or comments or questions. None seen, we shall move on from that one. Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. Jim is still there to the 19th. It is something I believe we do have to belong to. So if somebody would like to put their name forward for that, I don't really think there's any reason to spend much time talking about that unless the council would like to. Not seeing any questions. The Coalition for Human Injury Prevention, 2 members of council. I have no idea what that's about. I will let Dwayne. About that.
I don't know a lot about the committee itself. I do know, obviously, they're regarding injury prevention. They have, for example, we have an agreement currently with them whereby they have a portable sign that tracks speed. Mm-hmm. And so we have an agreement or arrangement whereby through this coalition, they own it, but we can acquire it. So we identify an area, for example, in the municipality that we would like to monitor, we'd like to look at a little bit further. We can access that piece of equipment to bring it into the municipality, place it where we want to place it, and it will track speeding and things like that. So it collects, so one of the services, for example, is it collects data, identifying whether or not we have a speeding problem, particularly in the municipality, for example.
Is that a cost to us?
Not that I'm aware of. Donna, do you know? I'm not aware of any costs associated with it other than attendance, per diem, and mileage for anyone that wishes for the council.
You're actually talking the cost of the signage, like the actual machine.
Yeah. It's the one over Blythe, I'm thinking, that keeps lighting up for me. Sorry, go ahead.
So there's been no costs for that.
So just to throw this out there before I open it up to council, I'm wondering if that would not be part of our police commission moving forward, because that's more to do with that, and they could have that under the police. So let's give Trevor a chance just to comment on that, because he is at the police board chairman.
Yeah, so this is more of a Huron County committee, like that we have 2 members that sit on. Like currently, pre-existing council, Brock used to sit on this committee. It might be interesting to know what, like, again, I think it would be interesting for this council to get the terms of reference, understand what the committee is all about before we determine whether it's a good or a bad decision. I don't think it, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's a place where you can take this committee and wrap it into another committee, because there's lots of other members that are associated to this.
Okay.
So I think, for some of this, I think it might be more interesting to get these terms of reference provided to us as council pre the expression of interest discussion. So it's hard to make an expressive interest on a committee that you don't know what the terms of reference are. So I think that would be my mind is provide councilors with the terms of reference, if there is any, or get some information, send it out, then allow us to have some expression of interest. Because I think, these are pre-existing committees, but, I think all of them have had their place in time at this point. So that's my comment to it.
Further, yep, go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, Mr. Reeve. I believe I can only speak to the sign being in Blythe. I believe it's being used to collect data to substantiate or rebuke some of the requests here in county for crosswalks or a sign or some kind of speed reduction or traffic control systems. That's the data that they're trying to collect now to find. So it is useful for them for dealing with having to have the data to substantiate a claim that services are needed.
So again, throwing it back out to council, maybe we should have the 2 members, think about 2 members joining this, and should it become something that it's a cost to council that we don't feel, because Dwayne's gonna look up the information on it. We can always cancel it out another day.
We'll,
Go ahead.
we'll locate the terms of reference or try to locate the
yeah,
terms of reference.
Trevor's
for this
talking,
particular
yeah.
committee.
Well, let's move on to the fiscal recruitment committee. Position, sorry. This is one I believe Neil sat on, the Reva sat on for quite some time. I'm gonna open it up to council. It is important. We have a wonderful hospital and we're spending a lot of money on it up there, and it is always a concern. Any of us that have ever tried to get a doctor, it's always a concern to get on a doctor's list. So I'm gonna open it up to council. Thoughts? And not seeing any, think this over, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a very important one. Wingham Musical Muskrat Festival. Well, Trevor, tell us about this one.
So so one of the reasons why pre-existing that this is even a committee of council is the committee requested funds to start up as a startup fund. And in order to do that, you in essence would like to be a committee of council. So that, and ultimately why that had begun, it has maintained that committee of council function because of the necessity of we at the council pre-existing us believed it is an important asset to the community. Whether it needs to be a committee of council with a council rep on it, that's this question of this council. I don't know the answer to that. My question would be, being a committee of council requires them to do a certain level of documentation, meetings, public notices, all that kind of stuff, that if they were a committee, but not a committee of council, they could do without the necessities of being a committee of council. So, part of it also is insurance. I think they go on, correct me if I'm wrong, Donna, but that's a conversation that they hold, the municipality holds the insurance for certain parts of their event. So, these are the reasons why it has been a committee of council. Whether it needs to consistently stay as that, my suggestion would be only to get information from the committee itself to ask whether they would like to continue to be a committee of council, and maybe they can ask that question themselves.
Having said that, further comments or questions from council? Seeing none, we'll move on. Blythe Business Improvement. Obviously, we're going to have a member on that. So we have a couple of fellows from Blythe that should give that good consideration. Wingham Business Improvement Association, same thing. Again, those started when I was on council before, and I think they're great ideas, and I think they have really worked well. The Alice Munro Festival of the Short Story, one member of council. Considering that's an international phenomenon, I think we should be part of that and try to push that to the next level. So again, I think that one is pretty well without a conversation, needs to stay with us. Wingham Hall, Town Hall Theater. Again, that we're going to throw this out to council. There is a great committee, and there's people that have really worked hard, and it's been all positives. I'm going to throw it out to open council, questions or comments. Seeing none, we will let somebody decide they would like to be on that. North Huron Columbus Center Advisory Committee. Go ahead.
So Reeve, I was actually the member that was on that committee, and I will tell you that there was no meetings held. The only reason this committee existed is because of the agreement between the Knights of Columbus Center and the municipality for the space that they occupy in the West Cass Community Complex. So it was a 5-year agreement. it was signed the year before I started on council, so it's coming due now. So it was never, there's only, I don't actually understand completely why it's an advisory committee, other than the fact that I don't understand why it's just like any other agreement we have with where staff negotiate with information from council and then determine what the decision is. I can't answer why it was. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's the history of what I recall being told when I was asked to be part of that committee.
So I'll take that history back a little before that. I was actually on the committee, Ray Hallahan and myself. We ran into a situation where when we got on council that there was not hostilities, but there was a lot of disconnect between the actual directors and staff of the complex down there and the Knights of Columbus. They seemed to be going either at heads or in different directions. So council felt that if we were to sit down, which Ray and I did and I really appreciate the folks from the Knights of Columbus that got involved in it. And we brought it to, and our staff, we all sat down together. And this is one of those deals where you sit down with people and you negotiate things and you talk to people and it gets better. And we had brought that a long way. And as Trevor said, it's been great. It's been so good that they haven't even had to meet by the sounds of it. I would suggest that we contact the Columbus Center and ask them if they want to continue with this or if they feel that things are fine the way they are. Again, it never hurts to have those conversations once or twice a year. And as I say, it actually helped both a good community member and our council to understand the difficulties and resolve the difficulties and move forward. I'm going to throw it open to council now. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Dwayne, I'm going to ask you to talk to them before we. Okay.
So
Go ahead, Dwayne.
So just as Councillor Sype or Deputy Sype has indicated, the agreement expires December 31st of this year. Staff will be bringing forward report of some form or nature to the December 17th council meeting, seeking direction as to how to move forward with that agreement that we currently have. So the agreement expires at the end of the year. It does not have an automatic renewal clause in it. Sometimes you'll have an agreement that has an automatic renewal. This one does not. So we do need to get some direction at our December 17th meeting.
Okay. Okay, and that's it for those. Is there anything after 12.16? Because I've got my papers mixed up. Go ahead.
I was just, based on the recommendation that we has received a report and regarding the council for information purposes and provide direction to the CAO to bring back a report of the terms of reference to council members and to allow the expressive interest chart to be filled out by council members.
You're making that a motion?
I am moving it.
Can I have a seconder? It is Anita. And all in favor? Thank you. Anita. Okay. And we have to do in the future that the following current economic committee members be, I'm okay?
Yeah.
Members be reappointed. Murray Simpson, Dave Tiffin, Glenn Mangan, and Grant Sparling. Can I have a mover? This is for the economical board. Anita moves. Do I have a second? Kevin seconds.
I'm looking for two members of council to fill the two-member.
You want that tonight?
If possible.
Okay.
The reason being that on the basis in terms of establishing the committee actually, subject to council approval, is planning to meet on Wednesday.
Well, that's right too. So we have a motion on the floor. So can we amend the motion for council members to sit on the Economic Development Committee?
Yeah, what we're looking for here is the two members of council that wish to sit on that particular committee, ideally.
And just a heads up, I will be sitting on that committee too. But
You can be one of the two if you wish.
I would like to sit on that committee too. I'm putting my name forward. Second name,
I would put my name forward.
Kevin's putting his name forward. Anyone else? We'll have to have a runoff if there is. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And that's it? That's it. You just have to share from confirmation. Yeah, so the confirmation bylaw, can I have a mover and a seconder for the confirmation bylaw? Just to confirm the general provisions, actions of the council of the township of North Huron. Kevin's motion, seconder. Rick, thank you very kindly. All in favor? Passed. We just have to adjourn, right? So adjournment that the council of township of North Huron agree that there being no future business for the council, the meeting is hereby adjourned at 10 o'clock. Do I have a mover? Trevor. Do I have a seconder? Paul. All in favor? Passed. Thank you very kindly.